Hi everyone, Diane Fisher here, Without a Debt Now. Today I want to talk to you specifically about collections because I was asked by someone recently. They had some questions about where collection items and past due items fit into a debt payoff plan. So let me share with you some of the questions I was asked and how I responded. First of all, I should explain that again, when I was single, and there is a difference to money when you're single and when you're married. When I was single, I know I did make mistakes early on in my 20s. Since that time, I'd gone to college and also got an advanced degree, and so I did have school loan debt, and that was basically the debt that's been pretty much following me for 20 years until I found Dave Ramsey and used his method to get out of debt. I would have been paying that loan for 20 years. I've been paying it for 20 years, was slotted to pay it for 10 more years. But after finding Ramsey, I will pay that loan off in a year and a half. And I mean, it started out at when I found Ramsey, it was about $70,000 I owed. That was in March of 2018. And this March, which is just a few weeks ago, I have less than $10,000 left. And I can't wait to share that story with you because when I pay it off, I'm gonna share that whole story with you. So anyway, that's my experience with debt. Now, I figured that out before I got married. I stopped using my credit cards, really. I didn't really use them. And I stopped going out and partying. I moved to a part of my city that was basically out in the suburbs because that was where my job was, and it was also close to family. So I was no longer, I wasn't around a whole lot of single friends where we went out eating and drinking and all that. That'll help you keep your money. So I figured it out before I got married and lived a pretty frugal lifestyle. Now, unfortunately, after I got married, my husband had not yet learned the things that I had learned, and it's a long story we'll share with you another time. The debt that we accrued as a married couple pretty much matched my large school loan debt. It's almost like my husband was like, hey, you got all that debt, I want a whole lot of debt too. And so, and this also puts a strain on a marriage. And marriage is a lot more fun when you have money. I'm just telling you that that's a good tip that you should know right now. Marriage is really fun when you have money. If not, it's just a strain, especially when you're not in agreement on money. I really think that you have to marry someone who thinks like you do about money, or you sort that out before you get married, because it's going to be a problem later. And I believe, the divorce rate in the United States is probably, 50%? Or higher, and most of divorces occur because of fights about money, how it's spent, how much to spend, and couples just are not in agreement. And that just it's something that you can easily resolve. And honestly, I think if you have two people that feel different about a subject of money, I think the conservative one should win because it's never going to hurt in the future to have money, but it sure will hurt to not have it. So if you're the spender, listen to the saver, because it's really for your own good. And so anyway, that's where we are in my marriage right now. I think that after finding Ramsey and really teaching it to my husband, he's on board. And he might be even a little bit more strict and conservative than I am now. But anyway, I feel like I'm way off the subject. So let me talk to you about collections. The reason why I brought up my husband is because he did have some collection items. I'm going to tell you right now. He had a debt for $22,500 that was old, another debt for $11,350 that was old, and another one for $11,133 that was old. So as we went on and embarked on our debt-free journey, since these debts were so old, and I mean one was at least 10 years old, these people weren't calling, they weren't bugging us, so I said, let's just put them on the back burner and let's just start with our debt payoff strategy and plan. Now, along the way, we did start to get letters from these organizations. Basically, they were credit card companies. And the two debts, the one for 11,133 and another debt for 11,350, came at the same time from the same bank. And they settled. We settled one debt for just 10% on the dollar. That means for every dollar we owed, we only gave them 10 cents. And the other one was settled for 15% on the dollar, which means for every dollar we owed, we only paid them 15 cents. I will tell you, Dave Ramsey recommends not paying anything over 25 cents on the dollar, which means that if something's $1, for every debt you have that's $1, don't pay more than a quarter. So we were under that. We were way under that on those. We paid 10% on one and 15% on the other. So for the debt that was $11,350, we only paid $1,135 in settlement. And the debt that was $11,133, we only ended up settling for $1,670. These amounts were fantastic. And I remember the time my husband said, no, I think we can get it lower, or he just kind of wanted to wait because he knew that my dream and my goal, my focus was my school loan. But these were offers that were incredible, and I didn't want to lose the deal. I didn't want to lose the offer. So instead of making my next school loan payment, putting everything towards that, I just paid that minimum monthly payment and used the difference to settle that debt, and then they were gone. And it was great. And then we got back to our debt elimination plan. Then about 9 months later, the other debt reared its ugly head. And that was the scary one, because that was the credit card with $22,500 on it, which was a debt that the bank had tried to collect about over 5 years ago. Attorneys were involved in everything, and a settlement amount was reached, but we just didn't have that kind of money. We certainly couldn't pay it all at once because we had so much debt on everything else that still had to go on the back burner. And again, we didn't hear from them for 5 years. I think that debt was 5 years old at that time. We did finally hear from them again. Now the debt was like 10 years old. And so they reached out to us recently, about 2 months ago, and said, okay, this is a settlement amount. If you can pay $6,771 of that $22,500, we'll call this debt settled. Now that was 30% on the dollar, and although I know that Ramsey recommends 25% on the dollar, that was close enough for me. And I just wanted to get behind me. Now I do have verifiable proof that they probably would have gone down to about 24% on the dollar, which is right in the window where Ramsey said we should be. That was the offer they made in January. They said that they wanted the amount in a week. We kept going back and forth with them, and they did come down another, I think over $1,000. So I think the settlement amount was actually like $5,700, $5,600. Anyway, it was like 24% of what we owed. And that was great. And we said, okay, we're in agreement, but we need a letter stating that this settles the amount, and they couldn't get it to us. So, and that was like the last week of January or something like that. And they said this deal is only for January. February is going to change. So we had to let it go and just hoped that in February when we called again that they would still be willing to wheel and deal. And also in that time, because I think we had 2 pay periods before we were going to call them again, so we saved the money from those pay periods, again, making minimum payments on all our debts instead of extra, put that money aside in a special bank account, and the next month we were able to settle for the amount that they had originally asked for, which was 30% on the dollar, and that was fine. Again, just to get it behind us. I wasn't going to try to keep negotiating back and forth. So we had 3 collections debts when we started our debt elimination plan, and along the way they did pop up. We did get rid of them. We don't owe anybody anything that's past due, and it was one of the best feelings that we had. I still have the letters of settlement, and probably always will, just to remember, or a reminder at least to my husband, we have to honor our debts, but if we can negotiate and come to an agreement on a settlement, that's fair. That's fine. I'm not going to tell anybody to completely ignore your debts, but take them one at a time, and you call each person when you're ready to pay them, put some money aside, a total amount that you want to settle for, and tell them, this is all I have, take it or leave it. If you don't want it, I'm going on to the next one. And just kind of wheel and deal with them. Even if you're sued for the amount, and you can't get blood from a turnip, don't worry. I still think there's opportunity, because there was in our case for them. They're so busy, they're not going to keep coming after you. They feel like, oh, we won our judgment, but they still they're not getting any payment. They're going on and bothering the next people, but they'll eventually come back around to you. So remember that, and just keep maybe an account with money in it for when you think that they might be coming back around. Now, a couple of tips about collections and paying. First of all, once you come to an agreement on how much you're going to pay, a tip is that you should not give them electronic access to your checking account. From what I understand, once you sign a release or give them that authority, they will try to go after everything that you have in that account. And what we did in those other cases is that I sent them 2 checks for those smaller amounts, 11,000 plus amounts. And then for the big one, I actually opened up a special account just for that purpose. And actually, on my cell phone, it was just so easy. US Bank, you can do it with US Bank and Chase Bank, at least that I know of. I'm not sure about other banks. And I just went on and went in the menu and said, add an account. And I added an account. They just asked me a few quick questions, and I got an account number. It popped up among my accounts. And the next couple of paychecks, I just put the money that we were going to pay them, because we told them when we would pay them would be about a month, 2 more paychecks. And we put that money aside in the account. And that was all we put in that account. And when the day came that they said that they were going to pull that money, they pulled it. That money was gone. And about a week and a half after I was sure that they had their money and that it cleared, and actually they sent us a letter of confirmation that they received our payment in full and that this settled the account. And I think that the big one was the one that had legal involvement. They even said that the case was dismissed and cleared, and it was settled. And once I got that, I closed the account so that they couldn't come back in and try to get anything from any other accounts. Another way you can do it is to go to the store and get those prepaid credit cards, where you can just put the amount that you agreed to on that card and mail it to them or FedEx it to them. But you can do that, if you're going to do that with the post office, make sure that you send it certified return receipt, where you have to have somebody sign it, and get a tracking number. Make sure you know where it is at all time, in case it doesn't get there. And I would also set it insured. So if you're selling for like $5,000 or something like that, insure that little gift card for $5,000 in case it never makes it there or gets lost or something like that. Because that's your kind of your proof that you sent it, and you don't want to have saved that $5,000 and just have it lost and in the wind, and then you have to come up with another $5,000. Another tip is something I already kind of mentioned, but make sure you get that agreement, the settlement agreement, in writing. Don't settle with them and send them anything unless you get a letter from them confirming that you've reached a settlement amount, and that that settles the account. Because again, if without that, and you send the money, that will be deemed a payment on that old amount that you had owed, and they'll continue to go after you for more. And if you tell, it goes to court or something like that, and you tell a judge, I paid them, and they agreed that that was the amount that would settle the whole thing, you better be able to prove it, and you know what, you can't. The judge is going to say, well, let me see the letter. And you're going to say, well, I don't have one, I never got one. So it's going to be as if you never had any negotiation conversations with that company at all. So you always want to get it in writing. And like I said, the amounts that we settled to came in the form of statements. stating that the amount that we settled for, that were offering us and we accepted, was the settlement amount. And the larger one, they understood that we wanted a letter and they were going to get us a letter, and that letter came, I believe they sent it to us overnight because they wanted to make sure that we understood that if they provided it in writing, we'd pay them the settlement, and they really wanted that settlement. And so they sent us the confirmation letter of the amount that we agreed to via overnight. It was FedEx. If it's a debt that you're not sure about, tell them you want some type of proof that it is a debt that you incurred. Kind of research it yourself to see if this was a real thing, because there are scam artists out there too. And anyone asking you for money should be able to prove that the debt is there. A lot of times you want to run your credit report to see if there's, if you can see the debt on there, if you can find it on there, because that's also a possibility. Well, those are my tips and advice and my experience. If you have old debts and collection matters, how to treat those. Preferably, you want to clear up any live collections or overdue matters before you start your debt elimination journey. Get those all cleaned up, whether you have to get a second job, whether you want to start your budget before you do all this, because I'm telling you, the minute you start your budget, you're going to find extra money anyway. Put that amount aside, and to amount that's about 25% or less of what you want to offer them. Set that aside, and when you have the money, call each debtor when you have the money aside for each debtor to pay those off, because the best thing you want to do before you start your debt-free journey is just to get their old stuff cleaned up. But again, if they were as old as they were in our case, and they're not bugging you, they're not calling you, because they had done all that, I guess, with my husband, and they didn't get anything, so they just kind of went away. But they don't go away permanently. So we were able to do this in the middle of our debt journey, debt elimination journey, by pausing some of those debts that we were working on. But again, preferably you want to start it clearing those up before your debt elimination journey. Well, I hope my advice is helpful, and I really appreciate you watching. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe. Thank you.